Have you ever been told you look exactly like one of your parents, or a grandparent, or a cousin? There's a real biological reason for that, and it has to do with how your DNA decides what to show and what to hide. You inherit half your DNA from each parent, 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 from dad, but your body doesn't use each half equally. That's because something called gene expression, the process that decides which genes get switched on, turned down, or completely silenced. And one of the main tools your body uses for that is something called methylation. Basically, tiny chemical tags that act like sticky notes on your DNA, saying like, use this one more, quiet this one down, or ignore this one for now. But here's the key part. When a gene is silenced, it isn't gone. It's just quiet. It's still there. And that exact pattern can sometimes be inherited later on. So a gene that was quiet in you might wake back up in your child or even your grandchild, which is why families sometimes get a generation-skipping resemblance, which I always think is so cool. You might have your grandmother's eyes or your great-grandfather's smile because those gene expressions got reactivated down the line. For me, if I'm standing next to my mom, people say, oh my gosh, you look so much like her. And if I'm standing next to my dad, I hear the exact same thing. And both are right because my body expresses their genes more strongly in different ways. My features are my dad's, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, but the proportions and the balance are my mom's, which is so interesting. And an important caveat, gene expression isn't just about looks. It can also influence behavioral traits, even things like posture, gestures, or how you smile. That's why sometimes people say, you remind me so much of your uncle, even if you don't look like him or you've never met him. You may have inherited the same subtle muscle expressions or neural wiring that shape movement and mannerisms. It's all part of how your genes express themselves, just in a less obvious but still very visible way. So when someone says you look just like your mom or your grandfather, they're probably seeing the results of generations of gene expression. Which traits were red, which were quiet, and which came back to life a generation later. You're not just 50-50. You're an ongoing conversation between your ancestors' genes and your body, deciding which ones to speak out loud.